I, Supriya Borwa, on behalf of the entire Anajori team, would like to invite and welcome you all to our Thursday webinar where we talk with eminent personalities from the field of gender and sexuality. And today we have Mr. Sahil Sood with us as our esteemed speaker. He's a renowned author and a novelist. Mr. Sahil Sood was born in Ludhiana, Punjab, and his short stories and other writings have featured in the Indian Review, Tarshi, talking about reproductive and sexual health issues, and Youth Ki Awaz. A Thousand Dreams Within Me Softly Burn is his debut novel. The book received widespread praise for its transformative storytelling and unique narrative styles, flourishing with poetic imaginary and soulful discovery. And now, we'd like to hear from you, sir, about your experiences and your contributions to the literary arena, and also about your book and also your article. So welcome on board, sir. Over to you.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Supriya. It's a real pleasure to be a part of this team. I'm holding a copy of my book because it's been such a long time since I actually read it or even held it in my hands. So I wrote the book in 2017. It took me almost 4 years to get it done. And the book is about this middle-aged school teacher who's struggling to finish his long pending manuscript. And then he meets these two very young people who come into his life and how they help him to finish his manuscript, or what the secrets that they have to share with him, which lead to some discoveries in their personal lives, is what this book is about. And it has a beautiful love story. It's a collection of letters and essays, and it's got a very unique format of storytelling. In fact, the first reviews that we got, they really appreciated the unique structure of the novella. And so, yeah, I guess that was start of my literary career. But before that, I had been getting published for my short stories and articles and essays since I was in college. And this was my first book. I'm currently working on the next one. And I received a lot of acclaim, a lot of love for this piece of writing. And to be honest, I didn't have a lot of expectations because this was a labor of love. And initially, I thought that no one would be willing to publish it in India. And that's what happened, because I remember sitting down and writing so many applications and reaching out to publishers, but no one really took interest in the story. But then there was this one publishing house, which at that time was in West Bengal, Woven Words Publishers. The publisher contacted me. I got in touch with the editing team, and they loved the narration. They thought this was very unique and something very fresh. Because you see, if you read the book, and I'm talking about the love story especially, it's so innocent, it's so fresh, and it's because a lot of it is borrowed from life, and just not the story, but the other parts of the novella as well. So it will always have that fragrance and that innocence, which comes from your own lived experiences. That was the start, and then we got published. Then we got a review from the Huffington Post, and then we printed it on the back of the back of the cover of my book, and it's still available in all 3 editions. It's been 4.5 years, and I think it's remarkable that the book is still in print. People are still reading it. I still get messages from readers all over the world. They reach me out on my email address, or some even do that on my Facebook, and tell me how the book has changed their lives. And or maybe if they have some criticism to share, they do that with me. And I think it's lovely. It's more than I asked for, in fact. And yeah, I can only hope that this continues and even leads to better books, to say. Your other question was about the article that you mentioned, the one that got published in Tarshi. I think the article was actually a letter. It was written to my father, and then I composed it in the form of a letter, but initially it was an essay. It's again like a very unique format, and where we discussed about coming out and what it means to come out, especially in the Indian context, and especially for an upper caste Hindu male in an upper class family. So, and what are those privileges that you inherit directly from your social capital, and how that influences your writing and your lived experiences, and so on and so forth. So that's what the article was about, and it's available in both Hindi and English. So if anyone would like to read it, I can send the link after this webinar, or maybe Supriya, you can share the link. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, from our side, we have some questions for you, about your experiences. That what made you write upon this topic particularly, and what kind of responses you received from your audiences or from the critics. So we wanted to know about that.
When the book was done and finally I submitted it to my publisher, I never thought of it as a love story. For me, I always thought this was about a man who's looking back on his life, and love story, of course, it's a very important part because that changed him and that shaped him into the person he was at the time the book was written. But that's not how I planned it. But then we have to market it, and that's how we marketed it. Because mainly, if you look at it, it's a beautiful love story, but then the structure is a little puzzling because you have some pieces of writing or commentaries on artworks and literature and movies, and sometimes it can be a little puzzling if you're not used to navigating such literature. So that's how this came into being. And of course, as I said earlier, your own lived experiences shape a lot of your thinking. And I think I wrote this book when I published it when I was 23, but I started writing when I was 19. And a lot of things changed since then. A lot of convictions went, like a whole lot of drastic change. And I'm glad I took this journey with myself, and I think this is a fine um, testament to that period in my life. It's a beautiful reminder of who I was, what I thought, and the kind of characters that I put a lot of faith in. So that's how the book came into being. And the responses, as I said, initially people were not too critical. I received a lot of acclaim, a lot of love, which was unexpected. I even remember there was this one colleague of mine. She called me up and she said that she was in tears, and she said, "This is the most beautiful book that I've read. And this also changed my thinking about a lot of things." It's a very unique perspective, which is coming from a homosexual male. But you see, that's not how I thought it, but that's the kind of that's the power of the narrative. That's how it impacted people. And it was surprising to me. It was humbling, but yes, a lot of it was unplanned. A lot of it was surprising, and all pleasant surprises. And now I think it's because it's been a while, and now I see people coming up to me and saying this was unique. This was a very unique piece of literature, but somewhere we felt that this could have been better. Or maybe, if you could have inserted this part, or maybe if it could have been longer. You won't believe, a lot of people have complained about the length of the book. They said it should have been longer. I have nothing to say because I said everything in the words that I could, and I thought that, and I really think if it were a bit longer, then it would have lost its impact. Because if you try reading it in one sitting, or perhaps two sittings, you will feel what my intention was, what it's supposed to make you feel, because it's like a puzzle. You go from one page to the last, and you feel that the puzzle is complete now, and then perhaps you would like to restart it again. And that's how the book is structured. That was my intention behind this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for this answer. And now, moving onward towards to the next question, I just wanted to ask you that about gay writings, especially, and mentioning about gay relationships in contemporary Indian writings. It is very hard to find that very few people write about it. So, why is it so that people are still not willing to have an exposure with this topic? So, I just wanted to know your views.
I think a lot has changed, in fact, since 2018. I think a lot has changed. We see a lot of brilliant writing coming out from Indian authors, and people are shedding their inhibitions about, writing about LGBT relationships, as you put, or perhaps storylines that involve LGBT characters. And today you see like such nuanced portrayals of what it really means to be a part of the community. So I think it's changing, and it's changing quite fast. And uh, my book came out in 2017, which is before the decriminalization happened. And I think it's the fear of being labeled, perhaps. You don't want to be called as a gay writer. Some people told me that if you come out and you tell people that this is what your book is about, but this is also a part of who you are, people would start calling you a gay writer. And trust me, no one has ever called me that. Perhaps maybe they do it they do that privately, but I don't think we live in times now. I think it's slowly changing, especially the mindsets. I feel. I mean, you guys are doing incredible work in changing the mindsets, and there's so many other not-for-profits working in the field to educate people and raising awareness. We see a lot of presence in media, in popular forms of media like movies and music and TV shows. And I don't think people are as afraid as they were perhaps earlier.
Thank you, sir, for elaborating and highlighting the facts upon this question. And, sir, the next question is something different from what you write. It's something about your personal opinion that do you feel that even after the Article 377 has been passed, but still people are not ready to accept same sex relationships? So, what are your views upon that? Like your personal opinion about that? Why people are still not able to accept that?
You fear something that you don't understand. It's as basic as that. And I feel at the core of every problem, and you talk about acceptance, or perhaps understanding something. Initially you're blocked by your own fear and prejudices. Perhaps you're too close minded, maybe you're not willing to understand. But I think in most cases it's people are not adequately aware, and people are still afraid of being shunned, by their society, by the communities that we live in. Because in India, it's more about your family and community, and it's not as inclined towards individualism as perhaps it's in the West. So I think it's at the core of every problem. It's the fear which blocks your um, understanding, or perhaps your willingness to accept something new. And I, as far as my personal opinion goes, like, which will of course be based on my observation, I have been away from India for I think the last 4 years I've been studying and working outside. And I remember the time when the decriminalization judgment came out. I was in Latin America, and I was crying. It was, such um, it was such an overwhelming moment for all of us, all over the world. And no matter how much, if you've become an NRI, you've taken a residence abroad, or you've changed your life, but this was a very crucial turning point, like a watershed moment for a lot of us. So I think attitudes are changing. Slowly, people are becoming more and more welcoming, more receptive to new ideas. And I do feel in the coming 5 years, perhaps there'll be a lot of change. And it'll become a passe. Like, no one will want to talk about it because it's so normal. And then that's what my writing is also about. Like, I think one of the persons who reviewed it, he said that uh, being gay is just accidental in your book. They could have worked as well as straight characters, and which I don't agree in mostly. But the observation was acute. Because that's how I view people. That's how I view relationships. And I mean, I believe in mainstreaming, and I also understand the arguments against mainstreaming of sexual or gender identities. But I'm someone who does believe in mainstreaming, and that's what the work is also about.
Thank you so much, sir, for this answer. The next question that I am going to ask you is that do you find some kind of changes in your writings, like the way you were writing initially and the way you are writing now? So, is there any kind of development or changes that you have evolved over the period of time? So I just wanted to know about that.
Like personally, of course, and I think a lot. I am perhaps less inhibited. Like earlier, I used to be a bit mindful of what I was writing. I mean, there's always this subconscious, at a subconscious level, there's this fear playing out, like maybe if it's too graphic, like, if you are writing a sex scene, perhaps. So it's something which is intimate, and you don't want to give out too many details. And you know like today, I don't feel any of those inhibitions. And apart from that, and I think the writing is, it definitely gets better with age, because you experience more and you practice more and you learn more. And you also realize that what worked perhaps 5 years ago might not work for you right now. And you've changed as a person. Your convictions have gone, like they've changed. So I think definitely, because right now the book that I'm working on is nothing like I've read before, and is nothing like the first book that I wrote. So I would say definitely the writings, they do it. The writing does change.
Thank you, sir. And the last question that I want to ask you as a host is that what is the new projects or books that you are now working upon? So, about your new works that are going to be published soon.
So I've been working on this book for the last a little over 3.5 years, and it's again like a work in literary fiction. It's not going to be a novella; it's going to be a full-fledged novel, and it's about. I don't want to give out too many details, because I really am. I'm quite superstitious when it comes to talking about your projects which haven't been finalized yet. So the book again has a very unique narrative, and it has an LGBT character at the center of it, and it's about an obituary writer. This time it's a little different. It's about an obituary writer who's solving some personal crisis in his life. But at the same time, it's this supernatural fantasy adventure. And I think it's going to be something very new for the readers, as well as something very new for myself, because this is the genre that I've always wanted to work in. Like, I've been influenced by the writings of Stephen King, and like horror is something I feel it's such a misunderstood genre generally. And I hope, like, maybe my writing will able to change perspectives about that, like a little, if because no writer can claim that your work will redefine a genre. So for me, like, it's like perhaps my writing will make a bit of a difference. And again, it's not going to be one specific genre, because the first one, if you read it as a love story, it's your interpretation. But then I see so many other things which are happening there. And this book is similar to that. Like, it's going to be a mix of genres. It's not just one genre. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for elaborating the topic.